Hello, welcome to the podcast. My name is Andrew Stevens. I'm a accounting major at West Georgia. This is my first semester there. I'm supposed to graduate in around 2028. This is
My name is Jaemin, and I'm an exchange student from South Korea, and I'm here just for 1 month. And this is my first group meeting and first podcast. I'm so interesting today. And today we'll be constructing the essay, There Will Be Monsters.
yes, this is a essay written by Julia Sukis, if I'm pronouncing that right, and it's about this woman, and she was gifted uh, the photo of a map from a person at a Holocaust. They were digging up stuff from a Holocaust, and they found this map it had a mass, like in the bottom it has a giant text that says mass grave. It's like a location of mass grave, and she thinks it's interesting. She has it as a kind of wall piece in her house, and even though she thinks it's interesting, people will come in and they'll see it and they'll be disgusted. And so while she thinks of it as a conversation piece and a way to talk to people, they see it and they just kind of shut down, and and rightfully so in some aspects. But then as it goes along, she realizes, well, maybe I should look deeper into this. And so she takes it down and she goes on a trip and she goes to a museum and they talk about like where it is. She visits the grave, she pays her respects, and she tries to figure out more about it. And as she figures out more about it, she realizes that although her family told her that her grandmother was deported and that her grandfather had to flee and that they were the victims, as it turned out, her grandfather was one of the police officers in the Nazi party that oversaw that mass murder. And then as she figures that out, she's like overcome with a lot of guilt, and she feels responsible for that. And she has to decide whether she's going to keep the map because like talk to future generations to make sure they're informed, or to just get rid of it and get rid of that guilt. And she ends up keeping it, which is very, very interesting. What was really interesting to me as I thought about it was how the map never changes. The map was the same as it's always been as they found it, but her perception of that has changed, and it changes like three times in a way. And I'll let Jamin talk about the first way that it was changed.
Yeah, at first, the map seemed to her an interesting conversation piece, just a map. She could enjoy the details and craftsmanship of the map and probably show it to others, like to her husband or her friends, like that. However, her husband criticized the map as tasteless and bad taste, and that's very bad map. Despite this, colleagues came into her office and laughed at the sight of the map. That was so disgusting. But and this was the first change why she kept the map. And the
Yes,
second change will be introduced by Andrew.
yes, and so she views it as a just like kind of a interesting like thought piece to just look at, and she thinks it's interesting. She likes the details of it and how he made it. But then once she looks more into it, it's like maybe I should try to find this grave area and try to find out what happened. And though she's kind of eager to find out what happened and like try to see, like try to fix the past in a way, she is she's kind of has a bad feeling about it. She has like a kind of like ominous feeling that it could end up badly, though she doesn't really know why. And her feelings end up being right because he ends up finding out the truth. And then I'll let Gentleman talk about how she feels after that.
Yeah, she met her grandfather's friend and he gave her the document. No, he gave her the help to find the document about her grandfather. And after that, she saw herself in the map not only as a victim of the past, but also as a victim originating from her family, the perpetrator. Yeah, she realized she didn't know her family history to the fullest. She just know that she her family isn't a victim, but and it tormented her even more. This change might be one of the reasons why she kept the map finally.
yes, and so it's it's also kind of interesting in it, an irony in some way that the family wasn't either didn't know the full truth or hid the full truth, and they didn't know about the grandfather being evil, and they thought that they're the victims. That family thought that, well, he like our grandmother almost got deported. Our grandfather had to flee. We're the victims, right? Like we need to pass on our story of our victimship. But in reality, it ended up being to where they were the perpetrators in a way. The people were, and although that doesn't define their entire family, it they missed out on a crucial part of that story. And it's a very, very interesting thought of like even though we sometimes see ourselves as victims in some ways, there's a lot of ways also where we can seem antagonistic or there's stuff that we've done wrong that we choose to ignore because we want to be seen as victims in some way when we need to take accountability. And I guess that's the next thing that we should talk about is uh, would you feel the guilt that she felt whenever she found out the truth?
Yeah, the final of the essay, considering she used the quiet answer should not have been banished. At the end of her writing, I think she was angry at Anthony for avoiding responsibility for that situation. So, after realizing through the map about the history of his grandfather, she thinks she had no, no. I think I'm not blame her
Hmm.
guilty.
Yeah,
Yeah, but how about you?
I don't blame her either. I
Mhm.
I do think that I would probably feel guilty in some way. I don't know if I'd feel as much guilt as she did, but I understand where she's coming from of like this man did all these wrong things and he's still thought of as a victim in the story, even though he killed a lot of people. He was an awful person, but he still kind of got away with it. And I guess in that situation, I would feel the same way. But the fact that she kept the map is very, very interesting too. Do you think that you would have kept the map?
Um, if I were in shoes, I think I just kept the map, not showing. If
Yeah.
I had the map, I wouldn't be able to live with that map because that comes every time. Because the change every comes every time, and I see the map. So if such feelings repeating this in my life again,
Mhm.
I'll get used to the shame felt at
Yeah,
the time.
that is true. Part of me feels like I would want to get rid of it just to like see if I could get rid of the guilt. But a part of me also feels like I should teach my kids about this so that way they don't like it's not like history doesn't repeat itself in a way
Yeah.
where uh it just ends up being they think that they're the victims again and the truth is kind of buried again. Instead, keeping that map not as a centerpiece or something like people like to talk about, but just as like something small to like have with you as just a way to know that like you need to tell the right history so that way people know what to look at and so like there's two sides to every coin in that aspect, you know? And so I probably would have kept it not necessarily as a wall piece, but as just something to show my kids and future generations just to know that you're not 100% without like nothing is 100% like truth and fact until like you search every single aspect of it. And then I guess that can go into the like the last part of this, which is the quote that I thought was very, very interesting, which was perhaps the real tragedy of the entire situation is not that her grandmother was deported, but that her grandfather kind of wasn't like was kind of buried in history as a hero or as a victim, when instead
Yeah.
he was really an evil person who kind of got off free from that entire situation and kind of rode the tails of oh well they're trying to get rid of the grandmother yada yada but instead it's he was a murderer, he was a criminal and outlaw that had to flee the situation and no one else knew the wiser, you know, and so it's a very very sad thing. I want to know what you think about that.
Um, as that final cut. I think she was very angry for her grandfather.
Mhm.
She didn't blame her grandmother, but she was very angry at grandfather because of his not responsible for the situation.
Mhm.
So I think she think he has to solve the problem, not running away.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that means, yeah,
And so, and that is another thing too that you read about in the story is how even though it seems like a kind of selfish ask, kind of like if history could have changed to where he was never involved in that, he never had to make that choice, but that is a kind of selfish thing to ask. But at the end of the day, you can't change it. Only thing that you can do is kind of again inform the people of the future so they know they don't have that kind of mentality that woe is me, like all I've done, like all the things that have happened to me. But instead, it's people have done bad things in the past. We need to move past it and make ourselves better in the future. So that's about all we have to talk about today. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. My name's Andrew.
Jamin, and have a good day.
Yes.